Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho 100, Season 3, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I managed to not cry during this episode, but the tears started welling up at the very, very end, and now, thinking back through the episode while I'm recording this has already got me like a little weepy a little bit, but I'm gonna fight through it. But yeah, especially because you're like, the title of this episode is like Divine Tree 3 Dimple is, and I was just kind of worried about like, where's this gonna go? And lo and behold, it goes the direction to go. But anyway, we're picking up immediately where the last episode left off, and it had opened with like, Teru being like, oh, I got this great shirt for you, yada, yada, yada. And, you have Dimple just talking mad crap. It's like, this shirt is lame. It's terrible. He's like, did you get this from a very cheap place? Did you think it was cool? He's like, I'm actually kind of worried about you. Even though we're fighting right now, I'm actually kind of worried about you, Shigeo, thinking that's pretty cool and stuff like that. And obviously we saw at the end of last episode, and it kind of picked up with it this episode, Mob ticked over that last 1% to go to 100%. And he's thinking about it, everyone's reaction to the shirt. Risu's, as well as Reagan's, but also like, his popularity and how Risu like bigged him up, being like, I'm so proud of you, Nissan. And then like Dimple being like, no, you're probably misunderstanding this. And in that moment, all this power erupts from him. And it's very beautiful how the energy manifests. I mean, even like Tsubomi comments on how pretty it is. It kind of looks like, at first I almost thought he was going to make his own spiritual tree, like almost like an Yggdrasil type thing, which I guess the divine tree kind of almost plays like an Yggdrasil role in itself. Now that I'm thinking about it, but then the energy dispersed. But then like Dimple notices like, but he doesn't have any power left in it. And I guess it's supposed to probably a similar mirroring of season 1's finale, where the second to last episode, but also the finale, where we find out Ma passed all his powers off to Regan. Because at first Dimple's kind of scared, like, oh, he's going to attack me. Oh, that look in his face, let me put up a barrier. But it's like, wait, he doesn't have any power. What's going on? Even though it's like, yeah, he swelled up and, let all that energy out like a pop balloon. And then we find out what it was. Mob, the emotion he's feeling right now, trust. Because he's like, I trust you, Dimple. Because he's like, I knew I had, like, I don't have to fight you. He's like, because I'm not worried about you hurting me, because I know who you are. He's like, the fact is, Mob blames himself because he's like, I got carried away. He's like, and to be fair, he's like, people get carried away all the time. Even I did. But even Dimple's like, whoa, you're actually a little too modest sometimes. So I don't see you. But he's like, no, the fact of the matter is, you told me what you wanted to do and I didn't listen. It's like, I could have prevented all this, but I was so caught up in whether I was popular or not. And it's just, I didn't listen to you. When it's like, you've done nothing but be, because for him, the real catalyst for all this is, you told me how you felt. You told me how you gave your honest opinion about this shirt. And I think from, like, it's that thing of everyone else around him, and it's kind of nice, like your friends want, and the people you care about want to spare your feelings, so they won't tell you like, oh my god, that shirt is lame. But Dimple has always been very blunt about stuff to Shigeo, and it's like, right, it's always nice to have a friend that grounds you and tells you things how it is. But it's also like, right, you're telling me how you feel, and because you're doing that, I now know, like, I can trust you. Like, you still are my friend. Because he's like, you could have easily done this whole, like, gathering power and everything on your own, but you chose not to because you wanted to do it with me. And then it kind of got Dimple thinking, he's like, right. He's like, the entire time, I finally got all that I wanted, the goal that I've been aiming for. He's like, I finally got it, but it's like, along the way, it's like, still feels like something's missing. Because, like I said, like, he even acknowledges, like, I got so swept up in all this. Like, the moment, like, he's like, I want it to be seen. And here's Mob who saw me. But then he's like, oh, I felt like I could use this kid. But the more time they spent together, the less that goal started slipping away. Now he has, because for him, it's like, it's something I've brought up the past 2 episodes or so. It's like, if he doesn't have this goal, what else does he have? It's all that kind of kept him going for so long. And he kind of found something more outside of that. And that's what's kind of filled that void up until now, but realizing like, no. Because he in his mind wasn't thinking about like, right, I have something. Just like Mob's gained all these friendships and connections, Dimple found a good friend in Mob. And I think he was so like, oh, like my goal, like I kind of forgot about that. And like, right, I need to get back to that, because if I don't have that, I don't have anything else. And so, but it's like, no, like, you are still my friend. And I even love that he's like, right, I guess I'll give all this up. And he's like, oh, really? I thought this was what you want. He's like, you spent this entire time trying to tell me, like, logic me that this whole thing was a bad idea. He's like, oh, I guess you're right. It's just like, I love that. But it's like fine, I give up, fine. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm eventually this power is gonna wane away. It's probably gonna take about a week because it took me about a week to get to this point. Eventually the tree will disappear and people's memories of it will kind of fade, and eventually people will still latch on to stuff. And so Mob obviously burned himself out and he's like completely tapped, and Dimple has to carry him home. It's like, yeah, let's go home. It's like the people found something to latch onto, and it'll always stay in people's minds. But it is the thing of the broccoli is too dangerous. It is something beautiful and amazing, but also it could end up being a repeat, of people pouring all their like hopes and desires onto this thing. So I love Dimple's like, yo, what were you going to do? He's like, I was going to use telekinesis to like lift this thing up and drop it in the ocean. He's like, really? That's beyond even you. He's like, you know what? I know you enough, Shigeo, to not even finish that sentence with conviction, knowing like you always surpass expectations and always do what seems to be the impossible. So it's a really beautiful moment. It's like, right, he's going to sleep, and it's like, right, like just wake me up when we get home. And Dimple's even thinking like, do I even have a home? Like, what am I going to do after this? I even love like Mob being like, oh, how long will it take you to go back to normal? He's like, okay, good. Could you just not come back for a week? He's like, really, you douchebag? But either way, it turns out the divine tree has gained sentience after everything. I mean, so many, like his own feelings, Dimples, as well as the masses, like general desires, have given this birth to the divine tree. It has its own energy, and it's just been biding its time, waiting, and it wants Mob. It's like, oh, I need him for sustenance, and it leads to Dimple trying to defend Mob, going all out. But the problem is, like, he's facing the same issue Mob was facing last episode. The more he's fighting in this place, the more and more of his energy is getting sucked up by this place. But it doesn't stop Dimple from still going all out, trying to protect his friend, Because he had finally realized it himself. It's like, right, the thing I've been looking for all this time, I want it to be seen, just like Mob. Mob wanted to be seen and understood, and he's gotten a lot of people in his corner, and Dimple has a true friend in Mom. And it's like, once again, I'm a sucker for some shonen friendship stuff. I can't, that's always going to work on me. That's always going to, it's super cheesy, and it's super cliche. I don't care. I'm always going to be in like, yeah, friendship is power back type of thing. So once again, it's very shonen coded, but I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm never going to like be down on that, Who knows? Maybe years from now I'll change my tune, but for the past couple of years, for most of my life, I've always been a big fan of that, like that anime or Japanese trope of like friendship stuff. But either way, once again, just doing all they can to just make this so beautifully animated, especially the colors, like when Dimple's going all out, fighting all throughout these enemies, and you see him getting battered and bruised during this fight. But like trying to like rocket out of the tree, zigzagging in the sky, like passing and smashing through all these these divine tree psycho helmets, and it's just, especially that point where it was like they shot out of the tree. That felt like, and that's kind of this series as a whole. Like when it gets into its big battles, they feel like final battles. It's like especially when those psycho helmets were shooting out of, I thought they were shooting beams that were curving. It's like, no, that was them, but they're all these different like bright colors. I was like, that feels like a final, like, oh my god, like let's put all our energy into this final attack at the end of like a video game or something like that. It feels like the end of a JRPG attack. And it was just beautifully animated and stuff like that. And it's just, yeah, like they crumple like all around Dimple. Even the ones from the tree are just down there like firing, like blasting like crazy. And but eventually like Dimple just erupts and kills all of them. But nevertheless, like obviously it's like this is kind of an unending fight. It's just kind of like the same struggle Mob was against. But ultimately, like Dimple, like it seems like, oh, how's this going to play out? And then we cut to Mob waking up, and Dimple's in front of him like, nah, everything's good. Don't even pay attention to that. You must have been dreaming. And there was this beautiful moment where Dimple's talking about the fact is that like he got so carried away. He's like, with all this power, he's like, I've never used this much power before. And it makes him realize like how amazing you are, Mob. The fact that you've had all this power in you and you've never felt the need to just use it willy-nilly. Like it's always been like you've always been put in a situation where you use that power. Great power comes great responsibility, you know. Obviously reigns so true, but it's also like Mob doesn't even think about it unless he needs to. And it's like that speaks volumes about you. Like up until now, you've never, he's like, the fact is that, because it's something Dimple had brought up earlier was like, all you've ever done, he's like, I thought we were the same because all you ever wanted to do, the one goal you had in mind is like, you wanted to tell the girl that you like how you feel about her, you know? And he's like, I thought that kind of made us the same, but it's kind of like a look at you. I finally fully realized how much power you have in you that you don't use on a regular basis. And I never understood that, but now I do. It's like that speaks volumes. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you getting carried away is just you thinking like, oh my God, girls are noticing me more. He's like, that pales in comparison to what I've been doing. So it's just kind of, I thought that was kind of a beautiful point of reference for him. But for... you know, Dimple wants to kind of make sure Mob is okay because he needs to get Mob out of this situation. He's like, Mob is so tapped right now, I can easily brainwash you. And I was like, what is he going to do? And he's like, yeah, you just get up and walk. He's like, you need to get up and walk on your own feet. And it's like, go home. Like, don't worry, I'm okay. Like, I'm gonna got one more thing to do. And especially because in Shigio's eyes, it's like he keeps seeing Dimple as we've come to know him in his like ghost form. But then when we get to reality, he's in his gold form, but he's like battered and messed up. And just constantly like waving Shigio off. He's like, thank you, my friend, you know? And kind of sends his friend off. And we see he gets attacked and consumed by the divine tree. But he lets out one more, like, I guess, blast inside. Just that little last burst to see this all through. And so Shigio makes it to the outside, not realizing what's going on. Tells everybody to go home. And so when he goes home later on in the news, it turns out Risu's like, yo, look, the tree is lifting up into the atmosphere. So it doesn't seem like they're going through with Rurigen's plan. They're just going to take the tree into space. But Risu doesn't remember what happened. So it's like, I guess like maybe everyone's memory's fuzzy up until they got brainwashed or whatever. But like obviously like Risu doesn't remember enough of like, oh, we were gonna go deal with the tree and stuff. He's like, who could do that if it's not you, bro? It's like, oh, normally Dimple would typically like have some answers or something like this. I'll just wait till he gets home. So it's like how fuzzy is their memories? Like everything related to the divine tree, I guess up until this point has kind of been wiped from their memories. Like, oh, that's kind of weird and wild that got uprooted and that's going, but who knows? And even Mob being like, I don't remember. I was like, wait, does he actually not remember? It's kind of unclear because at first I was like, does he not remember everything? Because he was the last one he was the only one that wasn't brainwashed. We have no idea the full extent of what Dimple did it. And we know Dimple just sent him on his way, like, right, I'll follow you, it'll be okay. But Mob being like, I can't remember. He's like, I think he might be, and he says, but Dimple, thank you. I think for him, it's a situation of, he doesn't remember like how, because he even said like, I don't remember how I got home. I think for him, what upsets him is like, I don't remember what happened at the end there. You know, I think he remembers enough and he probably doesn't want to worry to others like Risu, so he's not saying anything at all. Or maybe it is a thing of like, I can't remember enough, but I just remember I had to be thankful to Dimple. Like maybe that's all he can remember. It's kind of like a Naminé situation. Thank Naminé. You might not remember why, but that message is important. If you don't know what I'm referencing Kingdom Hearts specifically. Chain of Memories /2, but mainly Chain of Memories. But either way, it kind of feels like that, but him breaking down, being like, thank you, Dimple, you're my friend, and crying, it's just like, oh, God. But I mean, is this the end for Dimple? Did Dimple use the last of his energy to send that tree off into space? And it's like, this will continue forever, so I need you to be out in space till you starve and completely burst. Or like, I mean, I'd assume like the tree would have, I mean, obviously it feeds off of nutrients like a plant would, but also spiritual energy. So it's like, if you're out there in space, maybe it will maybe you'll eventually die. But I'm like, is this the end for Dimple? Who knows? We thought that might have been the case after Teru like dealt with him, but no, he eventually came back. So fingers crossed, hoping he does, but I don't know. For now, it seems like we'll see. There's still the back half of this season left, so there's plenty of room for stuff to happen. That's what I'm saying. Like that it was enough to just make me sad. But it's like that, especially Mob breaking down like that makes you, and just him curling up under the covers, just like you just feel so bad for him because it's like, once again, you still don't fully know how much he remembers, how much he doesn't. But it's like, he either, whether it's just like knowing like Dimple did something for me, or I remember up until Dimple brainwashed me, and now that he's not here and what's happening with the tree, Mob must have put it together. Like, I can't remember what happened, but I have an idea of what happened. You were my friend and you wanted to help me and do the right thing, and it's just like, man, that sucks. So we'll see where things kind of go from here in the next episode. The next episode, it seems we're going to be dealing with the telepathy club, specifically like maybe about the aliens and stuff. So I don't know if there's going to be any correlation between the tree going into the atmosphere. Maybe it burned up upon exiting the atmosphere, or who knows what, right? So I don't know like if there's going to be any correlation, but it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.